Maya Robinson never expected her biggest challenge would come from a patient who couldn't even open his eyes. The morning fog lifted slowly over Buckhead's gleaming towers as Maya pulled her 15-year-old Honda Civic into Emory University Hospital's employee parking deck. The engine sputtered twice before dying a reminder that her mechanic fun jar sat as empty as her coffee cup. She grabbed her worn leather purse, the one Grace had decorated with star stickers for Mother's Day 3 years ago, and hurried toward the employee entrance. At 29, Maya had perfected the art of making thrift store scrubs look professional. The navy blue set she wore today had cost $12 at the Goodwill on Cleveland Avenue, but she'd pressed it with military precision the night before. The small embroidered Grace on her chest pocket caught the morning light, her daughter's name positioned right over her heart where it belonged. The break room buzzed with the familiar chaos of shift change. Maya poured herself coffee from the perpetually brewing pot, added 2 packets of sugar she'd saved from yesterday's lunch, and inhaled deeply. The caffeinated ritual grounded her before another 12-hour day of healing, hoping, and occasionally holding hands with people who might not see tomorrow. "Look at you looking all official," Patricia Williams called from her corner table. At 52, Pat had seen every type of patient, doctor, and drama Emory could offer. Her graying braids were pulled back in a neat bun, and her scrubs, bright purple, today somehow managed to look both practical and regal. "You trying to impress somebody with that pressed uniform?" Maya smiled, settling into the chair across from her friend. "Just trying to look like I belong in the private wing." "Private wing?" Pat's eyebrows shot up. "Girl, what you done did to get shipped up to rich folks' row?" Before Maya could answer, Dr. Sarah Chen appeared in the doorway. At 45, the head of neurology commanded respect with her quiet competence and steel-gray hair that never seemed to have a strand out of place. Her dark eyes found Maya immediately. "Robinson, I need to see you before rounds." Maya's stomach fluttered. In 6 years of nursing, getting pulled aside by department heads usually meant trouble. She followed Dr. Chen down the hallway, past the motivational posters about hand hygiene and patient safety, toward the administrative offices that smelled of fresh carpet and disinfectant. Dr. Chen's office overlooked the hospital's main courtyard, where early morning joggers traced paths between carefully maintained flower beds. The doctor settled behind her desk, pulling up something on her computer screen. "I have a special assignment for you," Dr. Chen began, her voice measured. "VIP patient, private wing floor 3. The family specifically requested our most compassionate nurse." Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks. Compliments from Dr. Chen were rare treasures. "What's the case?" "Alexander Sterling, CEO of Sterling Innovations. They develop medical technology. Traumatic brain injury from a motor vehicle accident 6 weeks ago. He's been in a coma since November 1st. The name rang familiar. Maya had seen Sterling Innovations mentioned in medical journals, something about breakthrough cardiac monitoring devices. "What's his prognosis?" "Guarded. Glasgow coma scale fluctuating between 3 and 5. No significant improvement, but—" Dr. Chen paused, studying Maya's face. "The family believes he responds better to consistent caring interaction. That's where you come in." Maya nodded, already mentally shifting gears. Coma patients required specialized care, preventing bed sores, maintaining nutrition monitoring for subtle changes that might indicate consciousness. But more than that, they needed someone who understood that healing happened on levels deeper than what monitors could measure. "There's something else," Dr. Chen continued. "This case comes with complications. Media attention, board of directors, watching every move, family politics. I need someone who can focus on the patient despite the circus around him." The mention of media made Maya's chest tighten. She thought of Grace, 8 years old and smart enough to notice when Mama's name appeared in news stories. "I understand." "Good. He's in room 3M14. The morning nurse will brief you, but I wanted you to hear this directly from me." "Maya," Dr. Chen leaned forward, "you're one of our best. This patient needs exactly what you have to offer." The private wing of Emory's 3rd floor felt like entering a different world. Gone were the utilitarian beige walls and fluorescent lighting of the general wards. Here soft jazz played from hidden speakers, and the carpet muffled footsteps. Fresh flowers adorned every nurse's station, and the smell of cedar wood polish mingled with the ever-present hospital antiseptic. Room 314 sat at the end of the hallway, its heavy oak door partially closed. Maya knocked softly before entering a habit that had served her well, with conscious patience, and one she maintained regardless of awareness levels. The room took her breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Atlanta's skyline, where glass towers caught the morning sun like scattered diamonds. A leather recliner sat beside the hospital bed, expensive enough to cost more than Maya's monthly rent. Fresh orchids graced the windowsill, white and purple blooms that somehow managed to look both elegant and lonely. But it was the man in the bed who captured her attention completely. Alexander Sterling lay still against pristine white sheets, his face peaceful despite the network of tubes and wires connecting him to various machines. Maya had expected someone older, given his corporate status, but Alex Sterling looked to be in his mid-30s. Dark hair, slightly longer than business appropriate, fell across his forehead. Even unconscious, his features held an angular strength that spoke of determination and intelligence. Maya approached the bed quietly, her trained eyes automatically cataloging the medical equipment. Ventilator providing respiratory support, IV line delivering nutrition and medication, cardiac monitor showing steady rhythm. The chart hanging at the foot of his bed told a story of catastrophic injury and slow, uncertain recovery. She pulled up the bedside chair and opened his medical file. Motor vehicle accident, November 1st, 2023. Single vehicle collision on a rainy evening, brake failure suspected. No passengers, no witnesses. The accident reconstruction report mentioned the absence of skid marks, suggesting he hadn't had time to react before impact with a concrete barrier on I-285. Something about the details nagged at her nursing instincts the same way a blood pressure reading that didn't quite match a patient's presentation would catch her attention. Why would a successful CEO drive alone in bad weather? Why brake failure in what the insurance notes described as a well-maintained luxury vehicle? Maya set the chart aside and really looked at Alexander Sterling for the first time. His hands resting atop the blanket showed calluses along the palms, not the soft hands of someone who spent all day behind a desk. His face, though pale from weeks of hospitalization, had the kind of tan lines around his eyes that came from outdoor activities. A small scar on his left temple, already healing, marked the point of impact. "Hello, Mr. Sterling," she said softly, her voice taking on the gentle tone she used with all her patience. "My name is Maya Robinson, and I'm going to be taking care of you. I know you might not be able to respond right now, but I want you to know you're not alone." The monitors continued their steady beeping, showing no change in his vital signs. But Maya had learned to trust more than machines. She reached for his wrist, checking his pulse manually, a habit from nursing school that technology had never quite replaced. His skin was warm, his pulse strong and steady. As she adjusted his position to prevent pressure sores, Maya found herself talking naturally. "The view from your room is something else. I bet you picked this hospital partly for the scenery. Buckhead looks like a different planet from where I live in southwest Atlanta, but the sunrise hits those buildings just right this time of morning." She worked methodically, checking his IV site, examining his skin for any signs of breakdown, testing his reflexes with practiced efficiency. Each task came with a quiet narration, the way she'd learned to treat all her patients as people deserving dignity and information about their own care. "Your company's been in the news." She continued, updating his IV bag with fresh saline solution. "Stock prices are down, but that's to be expected when the CEOs, well, when you're dealing with this. Don't worry about that right now. Companies are like people. They're stronger than they look when they have to be." The morning passed in routine care, punctuated by brief visits from other medical staff. Dr. Rodriguez from neurology stopped by to check Alex's pupil responses. A respiratory therapist adjusted his ventilator settings. Each visitor treated him professionally, but distantly, the way medical professionals often approach long-term coma patients. Maya found their detachment puzzling. Even unconscious Alexander Sterling had a presence that filled the room. Maybe it was his size, he was tall enough that his feet nearly reached the end of the hospital bed. Maybe it was the way his face, despite its stillness, seemed to hold expression just beneath the surface. Around noon, Maya took her lunch break in the hospital cafeteria, where sweet tea flowed freely, and the lunch special included macaroni and cheese that reminded her of Sunday dinners at her grandmother's house. She sat with Pat, who was eager to hear about the mysterious VIP assignment. "So what's Prince Charming like?" Pat asked, unwrapping a turkey sandwich that looked suspiciously like it had been packed at home. Maya paused, trying to find the right words. "Peaceful. Like he's resting rather than unconscious, if that makes sense." Pat studied her friend's face with the wisdom of someone who'd seen too many nurses get emotionally invested in patients. "Maya, honey, you know better than to get attached. Rich folks got their own problems, and we ain't the solution." "I'm not getting attached." Maya protested, though even as she said it, she wondered if it was true. "I'm just doing my job." Pat's expression suggested she wasn't buying it. "Just remember when he wakes up. If he wakes up, he's going back to his world. Don't go building fairy tales in your head." Maya nodded, but Pat's warning felt unnecessary. She understood class differences better than most. Her apartment in Southwest Atlanta, with its secondhand furniture and carefully managed budget, existed in a different universe from private hospital wings and luxury cars. She'd learned long ago not to confuse professional care with personal possibility. The afternoon brought more routine care, but Maya found herself looking forward to each visit to room 314. She read Alex snippets from the day's newspaper, carefully avoiding the business section that mentioned Sterling Innovations' stock volatility. Instead, she shared human interest stories, a new exhibit at the High Museum, an upcoming concert in Piedmont Park, the kind of local news that connected people to their community. "The weather's supposed to turn cold tonight," she mentioned while checking his temperature. "First real cold snap of the season. I always wonder if people in comas dream about weather. If you do, I hope you're dreaming about somewhere warm." Around 4 o'clock, Maya's phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Washington, her neighbor who picked up Grace from school on Maya's late days. "Grace asking about your special patient again. This child too curious for her own good." Maya smiled, typing back quickly. "Tell her Mama's taking good care of everyone at work." Grace had been fascinated by Maya's career since she was old enough to understand that Mama helped sick people get better. Last month, she'd chosen comas as the topic for her third-grade science project, asking detailed questions about consciousness and brain function that impressed her teacher and exhausted Maya. "Can people in comas hear us, Mama?" Grace had asked just last week. "Sometimes," Maya had answered honestly. "The brain is mysterious. Sometimes people remember things from when they were unconscious." Now sitting beside Alexander Sterling's still form, Maya wondered if Grace's curiosity had somehow prepared her for this assignment. She found herself paying attention to details other nurses might miss, the way his breathing seemed to synchronize with her voice when she spoke, the subtle changes in his facial expression during different times of day. As evening approached, Maya prepared for the end of her shift. The night nurse would take over soon, but she lingered, adjusting Alex's blanket and checking his chart one final time. The day had passed without dramatic changes, but something felt different. Maybe it was the way he seemed to rest more peacefully when she was in the room, or the almost imperceptible way his fingers had seemed to respond when she touched his hand during pulse checks. The setting sun painted the room in shades of gold and amber, softening the medical equipment's harsh edges. Atlanta's skyline glittered beyond the windows, a reminder of the world continuing its business outside these walls. Maya found herself speaking more personally than she had all day. "I don't know what your story is, Mr. Sterling, or what brought you to this place. But I want you to know that someone cares about what happens to you, not because of your money or your company, but because every person deserves someone who sees them as more than their circumstances." She paused, surprised by her own words. Professional boundaries usually came naturally to her, but something about Alexander Sterling invited honesty. "I have a daughter," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "Grace, she's 8 and she believes in miracles. She'd probably tell you that healing happens in ways we don't understand, that sometimes the most important conversations happen in silence. The monitors continued their steady rhythm, but Maya could have sworn she saw something flicker across Alex's face. Not movement exactly, but a change in the quality of his stillness, like the difference between sleeping and listening. As Maya dimmed the lights for evening, she whispered, "I don't know if you can hear me, but you're not alone." In the depths of his mind, something stirred, reaching toward the warmth of her voice. By the third week, Maya had memorized every rhythm of Alex Sterling's breathing, and she was starting to realize he was memorizing hers too. The November morning carried the crisp promise of Thanksgiving week. Atlanta's autumn finally showing its colors in the dogwood trees visible from room 314's windows. Maya arrived at 7 sharp, coffee in hand, and Grace's latest science project question echoing in her mind from their breakfast conversation. "Mama, if someone's in a coma, do they still dream about the people they love?" Maya had stirred her daughter's oatmeal thoughtfully before answering. "I think people in comas dream about Hope, baby girl, and sometimes hope has faces." Now settling into the familiar bedside chair, Maya studied Alex's peaceful expression and wondered what faces populated his dreams. 3 weeks of daily care had created an intimacy she hadn't expected, knowing exactly how he liked. His head positioned to prevent neck stiffness, recognizing the subtle changes in his breathing patterns throughout the day, understanding which pieces of music seemed to bring him the most peace. "Morning, Alex," she said softly, opening his chart to review the night nurse's notes. No significant changes, but Maya had learned to read between the medical lines. His REM sleep cycles had become more regular, his vital signs more responsive to external stimuli. Small improvements that might not register on standardized assessments, but spoke volumes to someone paying attention. She began the morning routine that had become as natural as breathing. Temperature check normal, blood pressure stable, but slightly elevated when she first entered the room, then settling as her presence registered. Pulse strong and steady, with that curious synchronization to her voice that she'd noticed but never mentioned in her official reports. Grace had another question about consciousness for her science project, Maya said, adjusting his IV drip with practiced efficiency. "She's determined to prove that people in comas can hear everything. Her teacher thinks she's too ambitious for 3rd grade, but I told her the best scientists ask the biggest questions." As she spoke, Maya noticed the slight change in Alex's breathing pattern that occurred whenever she mentioned Grace. Nothing dramatic enough to trigger alarms, but a deepening that suggested attention. She'd started testing her theory, sharing different types of stories and monitoring his responses. Weather reports earned no reaction. Stock market updates actually seemed to agitate him slightly. But personal stories, Grace's school activities, Mrs. Washington's neighborhood wisdom, Maya's dreams of eventually opening her own clinic, these brought that quality of listening stillness she'd come to recognize. The morning passed in comfortable routine. Maya updated Alex's care plan, noting improvements in muscle tone from the physical therapy sessions. She read him sections from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, carefully avoiding the business pages that reported Sterling Innovation's ongoing struggles. Instead, she shared local news that connected him to the community beyond these walls. "The High Museum is featuring an exhibit on Southern folk art," she mentioned, while checking his reflexes, a procedure that had become almost ritualistic. "Grace wants to go see it for her birthday next month. She's fascinated by people who create beautiful things from whatever materials they have available." Maya paused, realizing how that description applied to her own life. Creating beauty from limited resources had become her specialty, making Grace's birthday special on a nurse's salary, turning their small apartment into a home filled with love and laughter, finding meaning in work that society often undervalued. Around 10:30, Maya heard unfamiliar footsteps in the hallway, the confident click of expensive heels on marble flooring. She looked up as a woman appeared in the doorway, every detail of her appearance designed to communicate power and success. Miranda Blackwood looked like she'd stepped from a corporate magazine cover. Her tailored navy suit probably cost more than Maya's monthly salary, and her blonde hair was styled in the kind of precision cut that required weekly maintenance. She was beautiful in the way that money could enhance natural features: professional whitening, subtle cosmetic procedures, jewelry that whispered rather than shouted its value. "You must be the nurse," Miranda said, her voice carrying the slight rasp of someone accustomed to being heard in boardrooms. Her eyes took in Maya's appearance with the quick assessment of someone cataloging potential threats. "I'm Miranda Blackwood, Alex's business partner." Maya stood, extending her hand professionally. "Maya Robinson. I'm Mr. Sterling's primary care nurse." Miranda's handshake was firm but brief, the kind of contact that established hierarchy without warmth. She moved to Alex's bedside with an intimacy that made Maya step back instinctively. "How is he?" Miranda asked, though her attention seemed focused more on the medical equipment than on Alex himself. "Stable. His vital signs have improved considerably over the past few weeks. The doctors are cautiously optimistic about his progress." Miranda's expression didn't match someone receiving encouraging news about a beloved colleague. Instead, she seemed to process the information like a strategic update. "Has he shown any signs of consciousness? Any responses to stimuli?" Maya chose her words carefully. "He's had some reflexive responses that suggest positive brain activity. Nothing definitive yet, but encouraging signs." "I see." Miranda pulled out her phone, checking messages with the distracted air of someone juggling multiple priorities. "The board has been asking about timeline expectations. We need to know how much longer this might continue." The clinical detachment in Miranda's voice made Maya's chest tighten. Recovery from traumatic brain injury isn't something that follows predictable schedules. Each patient. "Of course," Miranda interrupted smoothly. "I just meant from a practical standpoint. The company needs leadership, you understand." Maya nodded, though something about Miranda's tone felt wrong. In her experience, people who loved coma patients asked different questions about comfort levels, about hope, about whether their presence made any difference. They didn't discuss timelines and leadership transitions. Miranda spent another 10 minutes in the room, but Maya noticed she never directly addressed Alex, never touched him, except to briefly examine the chart at the foot of his bed. When she finally left, promising to check in regularly, Maya felt a distinct sense of relief. The afternoon brought a different kind of visitor. Dr. Chen appeared for her weekly evaluation, reviewing Alex's progress with the thorough attention Maya had come to respect. "His reflexes are definitely improving," Dr. Chen noted, testing Alex's responses to various stimuli. "Brain activity on the EEG shows more organized patterns. How's he been responding to your care?" Maya hesitated, unsure how to describe the subtle connections she'd observed. "He seems more settled when there's consistent interaction. His vital signs are more stable during conversation than during quiet periods." Dr. Chen made notes on her tablet, then looked at Maya with knowing eyes. "You've noticed the synchronization patterns?" "Yes," Maya admitted, relieved to have her observations validated. "His breathing, his heart rate. They adjust to match whoever's in the room, but most noticeably when I'm here. That's not uncommon with patients who have strong survival instincts. The brain, even in traumatic injury states, seeks connection. Your consistency has probably provided an anchor point for his unconscious mind." Daru. Chen's explanation made scientific sense, but Maya felt there was something more personal at work. The connection felt less like medical response and more like recognition, as if some part of Alex knew her on a level deeper than professional care. That evening, Maya's drive home took her through the familiar landscape of southwest Atlanta, where the architecture shifted from Buckhead's glass towers to neighborhoods of modest homes and family-owned businesses. She stopped at the corner store near her apartment building, where Mr. Kim always asked about Grace's school performance, and sometimes slipped an extra apple into Maya's grocery bag when money was tight. Her apartment building wasn't much to look at, 3 stories of weathered brick, with narrow balconies that collected autumn leaves, but it represented everything Maya had worked to achieve as a single mother. The rent was affordable, the neighbors looked out for each other, and Grace had friends in every unit. Maya climbed to the 2nd floor, her nursing shoes silent on the carpeted stairs, and used her key to enter the world that mattered most to her. The apartment was small but warm, filled with Grace's artwork, and Maya's medical textbooks, secondhand furniture, arranged to maximize space and comfort. "Mama," Grace's voice carried from the kitchen where she sat at their round table, with homework spread across its surface. At 8 years old, Grace had inherited Maya's curiosity and her father's, whoever he was, stubborn determination to understand how everything worked. Maya kissed the top of her daughter's head, breathing in the familiar scent of children's shampoo and pencil erasers. "How was school, baby girl?" "Mrs. Peterson said my Coma project is too advanced for third grade, but I told her that's because most third graders don't have mamas who work with unconscious people." Grace looked up with eyes that were wise beyond her years. "I've been thinking about your special patient, the one who's been sleeping for so long." Maya settled into the chair beside her daughter, helping herself to one of the carrot sticks Grace had arranged on a plate. "What have you been thinking?" "Well, if his brain is still working, but he can't wake up, maybe it's because he's waiting for something. Like in fairy tales, when people need the right person to break the spell." The innocence of Grace's logic made Maya smile, but underneath the childish framework lay a sophisticated understanding of human connection. "What do you think he might be waiting for?" Grace considered this seriously, tapping her pencil against her lips in a gesture that reminded Maya of her own thinking habits. "Maybe he's waiting for someone who sees him as a person instead of just a patient. Someone who talks to him like he's still there." Maya felt her chest tighten with recognition. Without realizing it, Grace had described exactly what Maya tried to provide for all her patients, but especially for Alex. The sense that his humanity remained intact, despite his medical condition, that he deserved dignity and connection regardless of his ability to respond. "That's a very wise observation," Maya said, reaching over to tuck a strand of Grace's hair behind her ear. "What else does your research tell you?" "I read that people in comas sometimes remember conversations they heard while they were unconscious. That means their brains were still paying attention even when they couldn't show it." Grace's expression grew thoughtful. "Do you think your patient can hear you when you talk to him?" Maya remembered the breathing synchronization, the subtle changes in Alex's facial expression, the way his vital signs responded to her presence. "I think he might." "Then you should keep talking to him. Tell him about important things, not just medical stuff. Tell him about us and Mrs. Washington and how the leaves are changing colors. Help him remember what it feels like to be connected to the world." The wisdom in her 8-year-old daughter's words struck Maya with unexpected force. Grace was right. Healing required more than medical intervention. It required the kind of human connection that reminded people why life was worth fighting for. That night, after Grace had fallen asleep in her narrow bed surrounded by stuffed animals and science books, Maya sat at their kitchen table, grading her own performance as Alex's nurse. She'd been professional, competent, attentive to his medical needs. But had she been truly present? Had she offered the kind of authentic human connection that Grace's research suggested might make a difference? The next morning brought unseasonably warm weather, Atlanta's version of Indian summer, making a final appearance before winter's arrival. Maya arrived at work with new determination, armed with Grace's insights and her own growing understanding of what Alex might need from her. "Good morning, Alex," she said, settling into the bedside chair with coffee still steaming in her travel mug. "I had a conversation with Grace last night about consciousness and connection. She thinks you can hear me, and she's probably right. 8-year-olds have a way of understanding things that adults make too complicated." As she spoke, Maya watched Alex's vital signs on the monitor. Heart rate 72, steady and strong, blood pressure within normal ranges. But as her voice filled the room, she noticed the subtle adjustments Grace's research had prepared her to recognize: a slight deepening of his breathing, a barely perceptible softening of his facial expression. "Grace wants to meet you someday," Maya continued, beginning her morning care routine with extra attention to details that might register in Alex's unconscious awareness. "She's fascinated by people who build things that help others. She'd probably have 100 questions about your medical devices." The morning passed with Maya maintaining a steady stream of conversation that felt natural rather than forced. She told Alex about Grace's science fair project, about Mrs. Washington's theory that every neighborhood needed at least one person who remembered everyone's birthdays, about her own dreams of someday opening a clinic in an underserved community. Around 11 o'clock, Maya noticed a change in Alex's positioning. His head had turned slightly toward her voice, not dramatically, but enough to suggest voluntary, rather than reflexive movement. She made a note in his chart describing the observation in clinical terms that wouldn't raise false hopes, but would document the progression she was witnessing. Just after lunch, Miranda Blackwood returned, this time accompanied by a man in an expensive suit who introduced himself as Richard Walsh from Sterling Innovations' legal department. Their presence filled the room with tension that seemed to affect even Alex's monitor readings. "We need to discuss some practical matters," Miranda said, her tone suggesting this conversation was being recorded or observed. "The board requires regular updates on Alex's prognosis and expected recovery timeline." Maya maintained her professional composure while feeling protective instincts she couldn't quite explain. "As I mentioned yesterday, traumatic brain injury recovery doesn't follow predictable schedules. Mr. Sterling is showing positive signs of improvement, but—" "What kind of signs?" the lawyer interrupted, pulling out a tablet to take notes. Maya described the clinical improvements: better reflexes, more organized brainwave patterns, improved muscle tone from physical therapy. She didn't mention the breathing synchronization or the way Alex seemed to respond to her voice, knowing these observations would be dismissed as wishful thinking by people focused on legal and financial implications. After they left, Maya felt an uncomfortable certainty that their interest in Alex's condition had nothing to do with his well-being and everything to do with corporate control. She made a mental note to pay closer attention to visitors and their motivations, trusting the protective instincts that 6 years of nursing had developed. The afternoon brought an unexpected discovery. While organizing Alex's personal belongings, the expensive watch wallet and few items that had survived the accident, Maya found a business card that had fallen behind the nightstand. MB Automotive Services, it read, with a date scribbled on the back that matched the day of Alex's accident. Maya stared at the card, her nursing intuition recognizing a piece of evidence that didn't fit the official narrative. Why would a successful CEO need the services of what appeared to be a small auto repair shop? And why would he have an appointment on the same day as his accident? She slipped the card into her pocket, unsure what it meant, but certain it represented a thread worth following. As she returned to Alex's bedside, Maya noticed his breathing had become slightly elevated, as if he somehow sensed her discovery. "I found something interesting," she said quietly, speaking as much to herself as to him. "I'm not sure what it means yet, but I have a feeling you'd want me to find out." The rest of her shift passed with Maya paying closer attention to details that might have significance beyond medical care. Who visited Alex, how they behaved in his presence, what questions they asked. She began to understand that healing Alexander Sterling might require more than nursing care. It might require protecting him from people who preferred him unconscious. As evening approached and Maya prepared to end another day of care, she found herself speaking more personally than ever before. "I don't know what your story is, Alex, or what brought you to this place, but I'm starting to think there are people who don't want you to wake up, and that makes me want to fight for you even harder." She paused, studying his peaceful face. "Grace believes in miracles, and Mrs. Washington says that sometimes the most important healing happens when nobody's watching. I'm going to keep watching, and I'm going to keep believing." As Maya slipped the note into her pocket, her heart racing, she could swear she saw his eyelids flutter, and for just a moment his lips seemed to mouth her name. Maya Robinson had never been part of a billionaire's revenge plan. But as she looked into Alex Sterling's determined eyes, she realized she'd follow him anywhere, even into danger. 3 days had passed since Alex's awakening. 3 days of carefully orchestrated deception that required Maya to maintain her professional facade while secretly coordinating the most complex plan of her life. To the medical staff, Alex remained unconscious, but improving. To Miranda and her mysterious associates, he was still helplessly unaware of their machinations. But in the quiet moments between shift changes, Maya and Alex planned their counterattack with the precision of military strategists. Detective Johnson confirmed the brake lines were definitely cut. Maya whispered, during her morning care routine, speaking just loudly enough for Alex to hear, while appearing to maintain normal patient conversation. Professional job designed to look like mechanical failure until someone knew what to look for. Alex lay perfectly still, his breathing patterns mimicking unconscious sleep, while his mind processed every detail. They'd developed a communication system based on subtle hand pressures, 1 squeeze for yes, 2 for no, 3 for danger approaching. It was intimate and efficient, a language only they understood. What about the MB automotive connection? Alex asked, his lips barely moving. Marcus traced the appointment. You hired them to investigate suspicious mechanical problems with your car 3 weeks before the accident. They found evidence of previous tampering. Someone had been sabotaging your vehicle, gradually testing methods. Alex's hand found hers, squeezing once for confirmation, then 3 times as footsteps approached in the hallway. Maya immediately shifted into professional nurse mode, checking his chart and adjusting his IV, while Dr. Chen appeared for the morning evaluation. His brain activity continues to improve, Dr. Chen noted, studying the latest EEG readings with satisfaction. I'm cautiously optimistic we'll see significant consciousness changes within the next week. Maya nodded appropriately, while Alex maintained perfect unconscious stillness. Their deception required constant vigilance. Medical professionals were trained to notice subtle signs of awareness that casual visitors might miss. Has he had any more visitors? Dr. Chen asked, reviewing the patient log. Ms. Blackwood stops by daily, usually with different business associates. They seem very concerned about his recovery timeline. Dr. Chen's expression suggested professional skepticism about visitors more interested in business than healing. Make sure to limit access during critical recovery periods. Too much stimulation can actually delay emergence from coma states. After Dr. Chen left, Maya and Alex finalized their plan. Today, Maya would meet Detective Johnson at his office to review evidence and coordinate with law enforcement. Tomorrow, she would confront Miranda with fabricated evidence of blackmail, wearing a concealed recording device to capture her confession. It was dangerous, potentially illegal, and absolutely necessary to ensure Alex's safety. I still don't like putting you at risk, Alex said, his voice barely audible. Miranda is desperate, and desperate people do unpredictable things. Maya squeezed his hand twice for no, then leaned closer as if adjusting his pillow. This is the only way. She sees me as harmless, just a nurse who got lucky finding evidence. She won't expect me to be recording or working with police. What if she becomes violent? Then Detective Johnson's backup team moves in immediately. Marcus won't let anything happen to me. Maya paused, studying Alex's face. But if something goes wrong, if this plan fails, you need to reveal your consciousness to the medical team immediately. Don't try to protect me at the expense of your own safety. Alex's hand squeezed hers with unusual intensity, not their established code, but emotional emphasis. Maya, I need you to understand something. These past weeks, your voice has been my lifeline. The idea of losing you now. You won't lose me, Maya interrupted softly. We're going to end this tomorrow, and then you can wake up officially, and we can figure out what comes next. The afternoon brought an unexpected complication. Maya was updating Alex's care notes when Miranda appeared in the doorway, accompanied not by the usual business associates, but by a woman Maya didn't recognize, middle-aged, professionally dressed, with the sharp attention of someone accustomed to authority. This is Dr. Patricia Vance, Miranda announced, a specialist in coma recovery from Johns Hopkins. I've asked her to evaluate Alex's condition. Maya felt Alex's barely perceptible tension increase. An outside specialist could potentially detect signs of consciousness they'd hidden from Emery's medical team. Their entire plan depended on maintaining the deception for 24 more hours. Dr. Chen is managing his case very effectively, Maya said diplomatically. His improvement has been consistent and encouraging. Dr. Vance approached Alex's bedside with the confident manner of someone accustomed to second-guessing other physicians' work. I specialize in cases where recovery has stalled. Sometimes fresh perspective can identify missed opportunities for intervention. Maya watched helplessly as Dr. Vance conducted a comprehensive neurological examination, testing reflexes, examining pupils, monitoring responses to various stimuli. Alex maintained perfect unconscious stillness, but Maya knew how much concentration that required. Interesting, Dr. Vance murmured, studying his brain activity monitors. His EEG patterns show unusual organization for someone in extended unconscious state, almost like he's processing complex information rather than experiencing random neural firing. Maya's heart raced, but she forced her expression to remain neutral. Dr. Chen mentioned his brain activity has been improving significantly. Yes, but this level of organization... Dr. Vance paused, studying Alex's peaceful face with growing suspicion. Mr. Sterling, if you can hear me, I want you to know that consciousness is nothing to be afraid of. Sometimes patients remain unconscious longer than medically necessary because they're afraid of facing whatever trauma caused their condition. Alex gave no response, but Maya noticed the subtle increase in his breathing rate that suggested stress. Dr. Vance continued her examination for another 20 minutes, conducting tests Maya had never seen before. Finally, she stepped back with an expression that mixed professional frustration with growing certainty. Ms. Blackwood, I believe your associate is much closer to consciousness than his medical team realizes, possibly within hours rather than days. Miranda's reaction was immediate and telling, not relief or excitement, but sharp calculation. How certain are you? Very. I recommend increasing monitoring and preparing for rapid emergence. Someone should be with him constantly. After they left, Maya waited several minutes before speaking. Did you hear that? Alex's eyes opened, immediately filled with concern that matched her own. She knows I'm conscious, or suspect strongly enough that we can't maintain the deception much longer. We need to move up our timeline. Maya said, her mind racing through alternatives. Can you contact Detective Johnson directly? Not without revealing I'm awake, which puts you in immediate danger. If Miranda realizes I'm conscious and you've been helping me. Alex's expression grew grim. Maya, I think we need to abort the plan. I'll wake up officially, tell the doctors everything, and let law enforcement handle Miranda. Maya shook her head firmly. She'll have lawyers' alibis, corporate protection. Without her confession, it's just suspicion and circumstantial evidence. She'll disappear into legal proceedings for years while continuing to run your company. Better than putting you at risk. Alex. Maya leaned closer, her voice carrying conviction that surprised even her. I've been thinking about this for days. Miranda sees me as beneath her. Notice a nurse from Southwest Atlanta who got lucky finding evidence. That's exactly why this plan will work. She won't expect strategic thinking from someone she considers inconsequential. Alex studied her face, seeing determination that matched his own. You're absolutely certain about this. I'm certain that I love you, and I'm not going to let someone who tried to kill you walk free because I was too scared to help catch her. The words hung between them, the first time either had directly acknowledged their feelings while Alex was conscious. His hand found hers, squeezing gently. When this is over, Alex said quietly, we need to talk about what that means, about what's possible between us despite the differences in our worlds. When this is over, Maya agreed, we'll have time to figure out everything. That evening, Maya left the hospital with her heart racing and Detective Johnson's recording equipment concealed in her purse. Their plan was simple in concept, but terrifying in execution. Maya would call Miranda with fabricated evidence of additional conspiracy documents, arrange a meeting at Sterling Innovations' offices, and record whatever Miranda revealed in her desperation to eliminate threats. Maya's apartment felt like a staging area for a military operation. Detective Johnson had briefed her thoroughly on the recording equipment backup procedures and safety protocols. Grace was spending the night at Mrs. Washington's both for her safety and to give Maya freedom to focus completely on the plan. You sure about this baby girl? Mrs. Washington had asked, her wise eyes seeing more than Maya's careful explanations revealed. Sometimes the best way to help someone is to let the proper authorities handle dangerous situations. I'm sure, Maya had replied, though her hands shook as she practiced with the recording device. Some things are worth the risk. Now alone in her apartment with Atlanta's winter night pressing against the windows, Maya called Miranda's personal number. The phone rang twice before Miranda's crisp voice answered. Ms. Robinson, this is unexpected. Maya forced her voice to sound nervous but determined. Ms. Blackwood, I need to speak with you about Mr. Sterling's case. I've found some additional materials that I think you should see. A pause during which Maya could almost hear Miranda's calculating mind processing implications. What kind of materials? Documents, communications, things that suggest Mr. Sterling's accident wasn't what everyone thinks it was. Maya let genuine fear color her voice, easy to do since the fear was completely real. I don't want any trouble, but I think someone should know what I found. Where did you find these documents? Hidden in his personal effects. I was organizing his belongings and discovered papers that, well, I think we should meet in person to discuss this. Another pause, longer this time. Maya held her breath, knowing everything depended on Miranda's greed and desperation overcoming her caution. Can you come to Sterling Innovations tonight? Around 8 o'clock, I'll be working late, and we can speak privately. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. Yes, I can do that. Come to the executive floor. Security will let you up. And Ms. Robinson, don't mention this conversation to anyone else until we've had a chance to discuss what you found. The line went dead, leaving Maya staring at her phone with the sick certainty that she'd just agreed to walk into a trap. But it was a trap she'd helped design with backup she trusted for a man she loved. Sterling Innovations occupied 3 floors of a gleaming midtown tower, all glass and steel, reaching toward Atlanta's night sky. Maya had never been to Alex's corporate headquarters, but stepping into the marble lobby felt like entering a monument to wealth and power that dwarfed her entire world. Security processed her visitor credentials with professional efficiency, but Maya noticed the guards' careful attention to her appearance, a woman from Southwest Atlanta wearing her best dress, but still obviously out of place in these surroundings. The elevator to the executive floor seemed to take forever, giving Maya time to second-guess every aspect of their plan. Detective Johnson's backup team was positioned in the parking garage and lobby ready to respond within seconds of her distress signal. The recording equipment was tested and functional. But standing alone in the ascending elevator, Maya felt the full weight of what she was attempting. The executive floor was softly lit, and expensively appointed corporate art and polished wood, creating an atmosphere of controlled power. Miranda's office occupied the corner with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Atlanta's twinkling cityscape. Ms. Robinson, Miranda's voice carried from behind an imposing desk that probably cost more than Maya's annual salary. Please sit down. Tell me about these documents you've discovered. Maya sat in the offered chair, placing her purse carefully to ensure optimal recording angle. Miranda looked different in her corporate environment, more predatory, more dangerous than she'd appeared in the hospital's healing atmosphere. I found them hidden in Mr. Sterling's personal effects. Maya began, her voice carefully modulated to sound nervous but determined. Communications about his car appointments with investigators, notes about suspicious mechanical problems. Miranda's expression didn't change, but Maya noticed her hands still completely on the desk surface. What exactly did these communications say? That someone had been tampering with his vehicle for weeks before the accident. That he was investigating who had access to his car and why they wanted him dead. That's a very serious accusation. Miranda's voice remained level, but Maya caught the slight emphasis on accusation, as if she were evaluating threat levels rather than processing shocking news about a beloved colleague. Maya reached into her purse ostensibly to retrieve documents, but actually to ensure the recording device remained active. I don't want to make accusations. I just think someone should know what I found, and I thought as his business partner, you'd want to protect his interests. Miranda studied Maya with calculating attention, as if seeing her clearly for the first time. Ms. Robinson, may I ask what you hope to gain from bringing this information to me? The question revealed more than Miranda probably intended. A genuine colleague would have asked about Alex's safety, about preventing further attempts, about finding whoever was responsible. Miranda was asking about Maya's motivations, what she wanted in exchange for silence. I don't want to gain anything, Maya said honestly. I just want Mr. Sterling to be safe. But I also don't want to lose my job or put my daughter at risk by getting involved in something dangerous. Ah, Miranda's smile was sharp as winter ice. You're worried about your position at the hospital, about what might happen to a nurse who makes trouble for important people. Maya let silence confirm Miranda's assumption, playing into the woman's obvious belief that everyone had a price or a pressure point. Ms. Robinson, let me ask you directly, what would it take for you to forget about these documents, to focus on your nursing duties, and leave complex business matters to people better equipped to handle them? Maya's pulse raced. Miranda was offering a bribe, implicitly confirming there was something to hide. I don't want money. I just want to know that Mr. Sterling will be safe when he wakes up. When he wakes up, Miranda's tone sharpened almost imperceptibly. You seem very confident about his recovery prospects. Maya realized her mistake immediately. She'd spoken about Alex's awakening with certainty rather than hope. The doctors seem optimistic. His brain activity has improved significantly. Miranda stood moving to the window with her back to Maya. Ms. Robinson, I'm going to share something with you that I hope you'll keep in confidence. Alex's accident wasn't random, and his recovery presents complications for several people. Maya's breath caught. Miranda was actually beginning to confess. What kind of complications? Alex is brilliant but idealistic. He was planning to redirect Sterling Innovations toward charitable medical technology, essentially giving away millions in potential profits to help underserved populations. Miranda turned back to face Maya, her expression coldly pragmatic. Some of us believe the company's resources could be put to better use. So you decided to stop him. I decided to save a company from being destroyed by misguided philanthropy. Miranda's voice carried no remorse, only the satisfaction of someone who believed her actions were justified. The brake tampering was meant to be permanent. Alex wasn't supposed to survive, let alone recover consciousness. Maya fought to keep her expression neutral, while her mind screamed with horror at Miranda's casual admission of attempted murder. And now that he's recovering, Miranda moved closer, her presence suddenly threatening in the office's dim lighting. Now we have a problem. Alex awake means investigations, questions, complications that could destroy everything we've worked to build. We, myself, James Morris, and several board members who understand that sentiment doesn't build successful corporations. Miranda's smile was predatory. People who recognize that sometimes difficult decisions are necessary for the greater good. Maya's recording device was capturing every word, but she realized with growing terror that Miranda's confession meant she was no longer useful alive. What are you going to do? That depends on you, Ms. Robinson. Those documents you mentioned, I assume they're copies, not originals. Maya nodded, unable to trust her voice. And I assume you've been smart enough to leave copies somewhere safe, with instructions to deliver them to authorities if something happens to you. Maya hadn't, but she nodded again, hoping the lie would provide some protection. Miranda laughed a sound without warmth. Of course you have. You're smarter than I initially credited, which presents an interesting dilemma. Maya's hand moved subtly toward her purse, where Detective Johnson had placed a panic button that would bring immediate backup. But Miranda noticed the movement. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Miranda's voice carried quiet menace. Security cameras in this building can be edited to show any narrative we choose. A disturbed nurse making threats against a grieving business partner becoming violent when her blackmail attempt failed. Maya's blood ran cold as she realized the depth of Miranda's planning. You've thought of everything. I've had weeks to consider various scenarios. Miranda moved behind Maya's chair, her presence looming like a physical threat. But you've introduced variables I didn't anticipate. Your attachment to Alex complicates things. Before Maya could respond, Miranda's hands were on her shoulders, not violently, but with enough pressure to communicate control. Stand up slowly. We're going to take a walk. Maya's mind raced through options, all of them bad. The panic button was in her purse, but Miranda was watching her too carefully to risk reaching for it. Detective Johnson's backup team was positioned outside the building, but they wouldn't know she was in danger until she failed to make her scheduled check-in. Where are we going? Maya asked, standing carefully. To resolve this situation permanently. Miranda guided Maya toward a door Maya hadn't noticed, not the main entrance, but what appeared to be a private exit. I'm afraid your investigation ends here. As Miranda reached for what looked like a letter opener from her desk, Maya realized with crystal clarity that she was about to die. But in that moment of terror, she also realized something else. Alex was right about the people trying to kill him, and her recording device had captured evidence that would ensure justice, even if she didn't survive to see it delivered. As Miranda grabbed the letter opener from the conference table and lunged toward Maya's heart, Alex burst through the boardroom doors shouting, "You want to kill someone? Kill me, but you leave her alone." In the quiet moments between heartbeats, between a nurse's gentle touch and a patient's unconscious response, love writes its own language that transcends every barrier we think divides us. Maya and Alex's journey from hospital room to community transformation reminds us that when we choose to see the whole person rather than their circumstances, we unlock possibilities that can heal not just individuals, but entire communities. Like ripples spreading across still water, one act of unconditional kindness, caring for someone without expectation of return, can create waves of change that reach far beyond what we ever imagined. Perhaps today you'll notice someone who needs exactly the kind of compassionate attention that Maya offered Alex, someone whose story might be waiting for your caring heart to help write its next chapter. After all, we never know whose life we might touch simply by choosing to see their full humanity instead of their surface struggles.